I want to do things that are going to challenge me. I want to say yes more than no. I want to do things that frighten me and challenge me, and hopefully that'll give me that little bit extra longevity. He is my proudest achievement. I mean, he's not my achievement, he's done it himself, but he is the kindest, most sensitive, thoughtful, brilliant young man. We are best friends, and I think, you know, doesn't mean that there isn't romance, but for me, this is the guy that will be there until the very end. He loves me with my wrinkles, he loves me when I'm fat, he loves me when I'm fit, he doesn't care. He just gets me, and we love the same food, we love the same of everything. Doesn't mean we always get on, we do argue, we compromise, but it's like you don't let the little get in the way of the big important stuff. I've got bursitis in this shoulder, I've got shin splints, I've got like a lagging foot. It's kind of everything that could go wrong possibly has gone wrong. So for me, it's about being gentler with myself, being kinder to myself, looking after the little girl in the blue dress with the headless doll, looking after the 15-year-old with panic attacks, looking after the woman who was in a hole at 32 and wanted to kill herself. I'm looking after all of those iterations of myself.
Welcome to the Stella podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to see you, because the last time you were on the podcast was via Zoom.
That's
you were
right.
home in New Zealand. So it's not just nice to have you here in the studio, it's nice to have you in Australia. You are, of course, a New Zealander. But
well, I'm a Aussie. I'm a New Zealand Australian, but I've actually spent more time in Australia than I have in New Zealand.
So we've always claimed you. So that's not unfair then that
No,
we've
because
claimed
I'm an Australian
you?
citizen. I did actually become an Australian citizen.
You did,
so
that's
I have
right.
that. I'm a Kiwi citizen and I'm an Irish citizen as well. So
I mean, we don't want to upset any of our Kiwi listeners and viewers and readers by, you know, cutting out beautiful New Zealand, but it is nice to have you here. You are here for an exciting new project, which we're going to talk about in a moment, but does that mean that we'll have you back on Australian soil a little more permanently?
Certainly this year. I'm doing what we're about to talk about, but I'm also coming back to do a play with the STC, which is the first time in over 23 years that I'm back on stage. So I'm doing that. And then shortly after that, hopefully, I've got a drama that's in the works that I might be shooting in Melbourne later this year.
Oh, fantastic. Because I know COVID really exacerbated the distance for a long time. So it genuinely is lovely to have you back in Australia. And yes, no more teasing. Let's talk about the project. You are going to be appearing on Dancing with the Stars on 7 this year. How exciting. How are you going? Are you in rehearsals?
We're in week 3 of rehearsals, and I've got bursitis in this shoulder. I've got shin splints. I've got like a lagging foot. It's kind of everything that could go wrong possibly has gone wrong. But I was warned before that. I had Virginia Gay message me not so long ago, and she said, darling, just be prepared that from day 3 everything's going to hurt, and it'll be like that for the next 7 weeks. I went, okay.
I suppose as an actor you have taken on roles in the course of your career that are a little more physically taxing than others, or where there might be a risk of injury. How would this rate on the hierarchy of your body of work so far?
This one's way up there. This one's way up there. In fact, this is probably harder than anything else I've done before. As an actor, there's that kind of, you know what you're doing to a certain extent, and you're learning lines, and so I'm very comfortable in that environment. Whereas I'm so far out of my comfort zone. I'm moving my body in ways that I never thought I could, and my body is resisting, trust me, and learning things that I didn't think that I'd be able to do. They make it look so easy. They make it look so easy, and then you get in there and you try and do it, and honestly, it's a challenge.
And what about the costumes? Because it's a whole Dancing with the Stars. It's a whole spectacle, isn't it? There's the music, which is amazing. Yeah. And imagine that you'll be able to have some creative input there. And the way that the professional dancers put the pieces together. And then, of course, the costume. Again, you're no stranger to a big frock moment, whether it's on the red carpet or part of a show. But what you wear for something like this is next level.
It is definitely next level, and the costume designer on Dancing with the Stars actually dressed me for a movie that I did called Mental with Toni Collette.
Oh yes, I
so
remember
we've already worked together before, so he knows my body shape, he knows kind of what works, and I've tried on 2 of the outfits and they are sensational, and I've seen sketches for the others. It's definitely out there.
I mean, I'm thinking the costumes will be slightly different to what you were wearing in Mental, by the way. And if you're listening and you don't know, then go stream Mental, starring Rebecca Gibney and Toni Collette, among a fabulous other cast. Rebecca, I'm sure that you have been approached to do lots of reality TV throughout the course of your career. You have done the odd piece, of course, you were on Celebrity MasterChef. But what made you decide that this might be the time, this might be the year to do
you know what's
something?
weird? I have been asked to do Dancing with the Stars a few times, and I've never been able to do it. And I've always actually gone, yeah, but I wouldn't anyway, because it's too hard and it's not my field. And then this year, for some reason, they asked. I was about to turn 60, and I found myself saying yes, because the voice in my head said yes, even though the rest of me was going no, but the voice in the head was going yes, and I was going no. So I was having this inner dialogue with myself going, what are you doing? This is not what I'm meant to be doing. But for some reason, I said yes, and I realised afterwards that particularly turning 60, there's something about turning 60 that I decided, it's apparently the third act. I'm moving into the third act, according to the world. Yes. And I just went, I want to do things that are going to challenge me. I want to say yes more than no. I want to do things that frighten me and challenge me, and hopefully that'll give me that little bit extra longevity.
So this has been one of the first times you've been able to say out loud,
yes,
I'm going to be on Dancing with the Stars.
Yes.
Who in your inner circle have you been able to tell? I know it's all a bit cloak and dagger, and if you have presumably been able to bring your husband Richard and your son Zach into your confidence, what's been the response from them?
Well, both of them know that I am an avid dancer in the bathroom, in the lounge room, in the bedroom. I do a little bit of dumbbell karaoke on my Instagram, so they both know that I love dancing. I think they were both a little bit surprised that I agreed to do ballroom dancing. But they've been hugely supportive. I have told Mum too, Mama Shirl, and my immediate family. So they're all incredibly behind me, very excited. In fact, my son's going to be at the first show.
Oh, how fantastic. Yeah. So I understand that your professional dancing partner, Ian, partnered with Lisa McCune last year. I mean, who won?
They won.
No pressure.
Yeah, no, he said he's calling it back-to-back, Beck. And I'm like, well, I didn't win last year. I'm going to lower your expectations, mate, because I'm not Lisa McCune. She's a whippet. I'm maybe at least 15, 20 kilos heavier than her. He tried to lift me the other day. That was a disaster. I think we're just laughing a lot. The great thing about Ian and I are we are both totally inappropriate. We've both got wicked senses of humour, and so we are both just kind of having fun. I mean, he pushes me, but he also is very patient with me.
So, like I say, you've been on MasterChef in the past. Mm-hmm. What is it more in your comfort zone? Dancing, which we have seen a little bit of dancing on Instagram, or cooking?
Neither. Not very good at
option
either.
C?
Yeah, option C. What is option C? No, because I'd never do celebrity. Get me out of here either. I'd never do that either. So, do you know what? There's some dance moves that I'm getting used to, and what I am enjoying about it is my fitness is slowly increasing, and I am using muscles that I didn't even know I had muscles. So I can feel parts of my body starting to respond positively, and I'm sleeping much better. I don't sleep generally. Ever since years and years ago, and certainly through menopause, I stopped sleeping. So I'm starting to sleep better, which...
That's fantastic. So maybe hours and hours of ballroom dancing a day will be part of your routine moving forward, do you think?
Maybe. I am waking up at 3 a.m. going, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... So I've got that going. Because that's true what they said about Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. I mean, she did everything he did, but backwards and high heels.
And wearing a killer outfit as well. So who needs counting sheep? You're just counting little, just counting ballroom dance steps. Mentioned the jungle, I'm a Celebrity. Of course, Sigrid Thornton.
My darling, I've been watching her. I'm so proud of her. I watched her in the Viper Room with those hundreds of snakes, and I was holding my breath because I can't imagine doing that. Honestly, I'm so proud of her. I hope she wins. She's extraordinary.
I mean, what a year, like two icons. So, and that's not hyperbole, Rebecca. It really is two icons, you and Sigrid Thornton, appearing on these iconic reality TV shows because of the cloak and dagger nature of the arrangement. Of course, for you, just revealing today that you're going to be on Dancing with the Stars, and we actually announced that Sigrid was going into the jungle just recently. So I'm going to guess the two of you obviously didn't have an opportunity to swap notes.
No, not at all. I didn't had no idea that she was doing that. I'm sure she doesn't know that I'm doing Dancing with the Stars either.
We'll have to get word touring the jungle.
Absolutely.
You'll catch up in more civilised surroundings than, possibly.
So. She's braver than I would. I wouldn't. There is no way you would have got me into that pit with those vipers and eating the things that they have to eat. There's just no. I think you're in much more stylish and comfortable surrounds Absolutely.
on the ballroom, even though you might not feel that at the end
not
of
yet,
like an 8-hour day. Putting the ice on the injuries. As you mentioned, Rebecca, you celebrated a milestone birthday in December, turned 60. Wanted to ask you about that. When we last spoke, which, like I say, was via Zoom, late 2023. It feels like it was just
last
a few
week.
months ago.
I know.
But anyway, I had to consult the calendar.
Yeah, but like I said, I feel like the 80s was 20 years ago.
I know. Well, when you were speaking about like the lift, I was, of course, going back to Dirty Dancing and all of the 80s, dancing films. So, like, I'm right there with you, Belinda. That was a good time. Good time.
It was.
We can stay there in the 80s.
Exactly.
But I love the way when I asked you about it, I mean, your 60th birthday, of course, being an annoying journalist, you were a mere whippersnipper of probably 58 when we were talking. And
That's
of course,
right.
I'm like,
I know.
right, by the end of this interview, I'll be asking you what you've got planned for your 85th birthday, because that's what we do in the media.
Totally.
We can't just stay in the present moment. But I loved your answer because you spoke about how you've lost people in your life and that it is genuinely a privilege to be getting older. And I know that so many of us intellectually understand that, but it's easier said than done sometimes. And I love the idea of, for all of us, especially for women, of really reframing that idea.
Absolutely.
And for someone like you who is in the public eye, there is so much pressure and you have so much of your life is played out in public, which is always difficult for anyone growing up, because when people are like, you've got constant reminders of the good and the bad from the younger you and the person that was learning things. I want to ask you about that. How much of that has shaped the way that you've celebrated turning 60?
I think because I have always been very open and honest about anything. I mean, if people ask me a direct question, I'll give them an honest answer. I do feel like I am privileged. I think it started back when I was in my early 20s. I travelled a lot with World Vision. So right back then I was going to countries where I was watching children dying from malnutrition or diseases that are preventable. So that was a huge shock to me, and gave me a huge appreciation, obviously, of my life. And also, I think, coming from the background that I've had, growing up with an alcoholic father who was very violent, and there was sexual abuse in the family, all sorts of stuff. So I think that's also given me a huge appreciation and a need to talk about things, because I think we're all on the same journey, really. We've all got the same energy running through us, and I think it's vital that we help each other through it. And if whatever I say can help someone else struggling, if I can be honest enough to say, yeah, this is me and this is what's happened to me, but I'm still getting through it. Like I talked about my nervous breakdown, I'm very happy to talk about that. I just think it helps. And again, every year is a privilege. They go past much quicker. I said to my mum, because my mum's about to turn 90, and I went, Mum, when does it slow down? And she says, darling, it just gets quicker. And she said the saddest thing is that she looks in the mirror and goes, when did that happen? Because in her mind, she's still 35. She said, I still feel like I have the mind of a 35-year-old, but I've got the body of a 90-year-old.
And it feels in some ways that feeling that even if you're 90, that you've got the mind and the heart of a 35-year-old. I think another part of hearing you speak is, we don't always chat about this enough, that especially if you have had difficult times in your childhood and your formative years, that life can actually get lighter and easier.
Absolutely.
And the Rebecca Gibney that I'm sitting here with, that is doing Dancing with the Stars at 60, is probably a very different and, again, lighter feels like the energy that the word conjures up. I wish there was another word springing to mind than the Rebecca Gibney who was a young woman, a teenager, finding her industry. And we often think that life gets more complicated and messier and that we become a bit more cynical and jaded. But your experience, if I understand, would be the opposite of that.
Complete opposite. And I think because I had that imposter syndrome all through my 20s and even into my 30s, and I still get it. But then as you do start to, the one good thing about aging is you start to realise that your opinion of yourself is actually more important than other people's opinion of you. And if you can live with yourself, and if you can start dealing with your issues and forgiving yourself for your past mistakes, it's such a relief when you get a bit older and you stop competing with your younger self. I don't compete with my younger self anymore. I look after her, and I look back on the little girl. In fact, my sister said it the other day beautifully. She said, "You're dancing for that little 8-year-old with the headless doll that had dreams of that." She said, "Go out there and dance for her." And so that's what I've started doing. I've started looking at my younger self, and I'm trying to nurture that person, because she's still in there.
Of course.
I just don't look like her anymore.
Yes.
But she's definitely
She's
still
there.
in there, and I'm trying to take care of her in a much better way than I did when I was young. I didn't look after her at all. I constantly criticised myself. I constantly told myself I was too fat, too this, too whatever. I didn't look after her, and I'm determined to go back and right those wrongs and look after her a lot better now.
Oh, I really love that. And what a beautiful analogy from your sister.
I
Isn't
know.
that so
I know.
lovely?
I'm so lucky. I love my sister. I love all my sisters, but I've got one living in Sydney, and we see each other all the time. Yeah.
And there's a bit more now that we've claimed you back here.
Yes.
As you know, yes, an Australian, but like also, an Australian that's spending more time here.
Yes,
Again, sorry
yes.
to our New Zealand audience. Last year also, apart from Milestone Birthday in December, you became only the 4th woman ever inducted into the Logie's Hall of Fame.
Speaking of imposter syndrome.
Really?
Yeah. Even then, I think when it first was, I was approached about it and it was discussed, my first reaction was, surely there are many more people that deserve it, way more than me. That was my first reaction. And of course, it's incredibly humbling, and I was utterly overwhelmed. And then to get to the night, I hadn't seen the package, but to sit there on the night and watch the package of all my work that I have done over the last 40 plus years, and all those wonderful people saying those incredible things, I finally actually went, oh gosh, I have actually been around a long time. I have, maybe, not that I deserve the award at all. I don't think anyone deserves awards, but I thought if I can actually be a voice for other women and an example to go, yes, look at me and look at where I came from and look at me now, because certainly the 16-year-old would never have imagined that I'd be standing there with that beautiful gold statue. I mean, yeah.
It was really beautiful, and of course you were introduced by your son Zach.
You'll start me crying again.
I know, I'm sorry, and that's actually not my intention.
No.
But there's some really beautiful comments from him. He said, we're all here to celebrate this amazing woman, but of course I know her as my mother and a woman with kindness, and I know kindness is a recurring theme. I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. I mean, it's already such a moving night. As you say, you've seen that montage put together, and then to have the introduction from him. I mean, we talk about icing on the cake. That's got to have been icing on the cake moment.
It was incredibly special, and I was so proud, because he is my proudest achievement. I mean, he's not my achievement, he's done it himself, but he is the kindest, most sensitive, thoughtful, brilliant young man, and he really meant it too. And we have such a strong relationship. When things are going bad, he'll pick up the phone and call me, whether it's 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. If he's having a bad day, he'll ring me, and we talk it through. And I just feel so privileged to have that relationship with him. And yeah, I was utterly honoured that he did that for me. Meant a lot. He was so proud. He came up beforehand though, and I was like, oh my, I'm so nervous. He goes, you're right, Mum. I said, no, I'm really nervous, darling. Why are you like this? And he said, because he said excitement and fear are the same emotion. You've just got to flip it. And I went, wait, what? He goes, fear and excitement, Mum, they are exactly the same emotion. Just turn it around. Turn that fear into excitement. He said, that's what I'm doing. I'm really excited.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some drop the mic wisdom right there. And he was 16 at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, okay. Well, you and Richard have done a very good job.
Yeah,
like you say,
thanks.
Zach's his own person, but that's still some guidance. And then, of course, so many of your former co-stars and peers from across the industry also participated in paying tribute.
Yeah.
That, again, would have been really special, because you talk about you getting the phone call, okay, we're going to induct you into the Hall of Fame, and you processing that, but people also getting that call. And let's be really honest, sometimes they go, oh, you know what, great for that person, I'm just going to sit this one out. Oh, I'd love to help you, but gee, I'm over shooting a movie in Malaysia at the moment. Phone's about to drop out. Sorry, terrible Wi-Fi here. So that is a real testament to not only your standing in the industry, but I'm going to use that word again, kindness, and the way that you really nurture people, especially on set. I mean, we've talked in the past about the young actors that you've taken care of, like obviously the Pack to the Rafters cast would be a great case in point. But to have all of those co-stars from across the year, that must have really meant I've really made some great friendships and made a difference on the sets I've been on.
I think I can't be on a set unless I make friends or if I'm making sure that everyone's happy. I can't operate any other way. And certainly at the Logies and having so many people say, again, so many extraordinary things, I just felt very blessed and very humbled. I mean, humbled's the word because you don't ever assume things like that when you're, particularly in this industry. It's you work hard, but you don't do it for awards. You don't do it for that. You do it because you want to keep working, obviously, and you want to make the environment as comfortable and as happy for as many people. And I do. I sit back now and I just think if it was to all end tomorrow, I just feel so lucky. I still have all these amazing friendships. I was out with Georgie Parker on the weekend. Amazing. Kerry Armstrong, Jane Hall. I can rattle off names and names
And so many of those women, as you say, you really did meet very early on in your career. The nature of the industry is that there's this trope where we love to pit women against one another, and I really like to think that it's getting better.
It is.
And I think the truth is the reality of it flies in the face of that narrative. I would argue always has.
Yeah.
But obviously your experience has put light to that notion anyway.
Totally. I've never been in competition with another woman, and I think maybe it's because I'm the youngest of three sisters, so there's four of us. We've never competed. I've always admired them and looked up to them, and so I've always had such a compassion and a love for women, and also having the most incredible mother who's had to deal with the most extraordinary things. So women for me have always been my touchstone. I just could never compete. If someone got a job over me, I was always incredibly, thrilled for them and celebrated with them. I never went, oh, why didn't it go my way? I didn't even think like that. I'm not competitive in that way. And it does sadden me sometimes when you look at social media and you're scrolling through and you see some of the comments that other women make on other women's feeds about their appearance or what they're doing to their bodies. And I'm like, please, can we stop judging each other? Can we please just be supportive? There's enough shit going on in the world without tearing each other down. I mean, life is hard enough without,
us turning on one another. I completely agree. And I also think the problem with that too is that then it feeds into this narrative that you'll hear a lot of people say, like, oh, women are their own worst enemies. It's women that are tearing down other women, not the patriarchy, not the men, not the power systems that maybe we need to think about. So we're also, I think, because really, without getting into Women's Studies 101, that is what patriarchy is,
yes,
of course,
totally.
isn't it? Is that you're starting to turn on one another because we're all growing up with the same narrative, and then it just becomes like a self-defeating, self-loathing behaviour.
Totally.
So I completely agree. It's not to say that, of course, you're not going to have a difference of opinion. You don't have to love every single woman that you meet, but this...
But argue their opinion, not their appearance. If you want to have an opinion on their attitudes or their morals or whatever, that's one thing. Don't have a go at their appearance. If someone wants to, put their boobs on their face, I don't care. It's their choice. It's their body. Let people do what they want. Let people be who they want to be. Yeah. It's called freedom of speech.
I look really well said. I completely agree. As I mentioned, only the fourth woman to be inducted into the Logie Hall of Fame.
Hope we change that.
This is the thing. I mean, it's we've had so many amazing women, even here on the Stellar podcast, that have not only made such big inroads in acting, but then producing as well. Claudia Carvin was just on before Christmas. Nicole Kidman, of course. All of these amazing, dynamic women who are also amplifying the stories of other women. I'd love to ask your observations about the nature of the industry. Do you think it's getting better?
I do, actually, and I think that they are acknowledging it. And I think TV Week, to their credit, by putting me in it, was just the start. And I think they've acknowledged it. I don't even think it was necessarily on their radar as such. I think the last few years, certain people have been inducted for various reasons. It's not that they were putting women to the side, but I think certainly now they've gone. And also, I mean, we talked about Claudia and Nicole, but there's also people like Julie McGoran, who's the head of Channel 7 Drama, and Joe Porter and Rachel Gardner. There's all these other, Bruna Papandreou, these extraordinary female producers who stay behind the camera. They're more interested in telling women's stories. But they are, again, those women should be up there being acknowledged. And that's hopefully what I said at the Logies. I wouldn't be where I am, not just without my fellow actors, but fellow producers and agents and crew members, women in those areas that also need acknowledgement and to be, upheld, lifted up.
That's right. Well, I think you've always been, certainly my experience of speaking to you, have been one of those actors that's always very generous in acknowledging people behind the scenes. And that, again,
definitely
would just, I imagine, come back to your values and a lot of what was instilled in you from a young age from your mum, Cheryl.
Absolutely. As she said, you treat people as you'll have them treat you, but no one can do anything by themselves. Most people don't do careers by themselves. They don't win awards by themselves. Everyone, particularly in the film industry and television industry, it's we are all spokes in the wheel. And you can't do the job without someone else. You can't do the job without the cameraman, the director, the writer, the makeup artist, the person that brings you a cup of tea, or you bring them a cup of tea. We all help each other. I mean, it's a bit of a circus. Carnival folk, I think my mum used to say.
It's literally a circus.
Yeah,
I mean, you see a production. Anyone listening that's ever walked past where they're shooting a big drama, I mean, there are all of the vans and everything, and it does look like the circus is in town. It might just be the next big drama that's being filmed. And you spoke about some of those female friends. Of course, a lot of your friendship group, of course, I'm sure, are not people that are even in the industry, but a lot of the women from Jane Hall early on, Kerry Armstrong, as you mentioned, Deborah Lee Furness, Georgie Parker. Sigrid. I mean, what a line from Sigrid at the Hall of Fame. Didn't she say Rebecca Gibney could turn anyone because there was a reference? I think Deborah Lee Furness had played a character who was making a pass at your character.
She did. She did.
It was a great line. I mean, obviously I would never ask you to speak for anyone else, but with that experience, do you think everyone is also having part of the same experience? That, of course, our culture isn't perfect. Our media definitely not perfect. Our industry certainly not perfect. But all of those different experiences of women behind the scenes being more amplified, more of a focus on female storytelling, less pitting women against one another. Do you think that's a bit of a shared experience amongst some of your colleagues and friends?
Definitely, and I think also we're encouraging each other behind the scenes. Like Claudia is obviously she's been producing for many years now. And I think as we age, I think we're all very aware that a lot of the audience are women our age or older, and they want to see us represented as strong women that still have lives, that still have sex lives, that still do stuff. They're not just grandmothers. They're not just, out in the garden, So I think we're all kind of pushing that same envelope. We want to push the boundaries and make sure that those stories are being continually told. And again, I keep wanting to go back to Bruna Papandreou because she's at the forefront of that at the moment with women's stories.
Absolutely.
It's exciting. It's an exciting time.
It's great because it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because once one film or series really resonates, and all of a sudden the people that are funding these things go, who knew?
Yes,
who
exactly.
knew that women wanted to watch things? Who knew women over 40 wanted to watch things? Who'd have thunk it?
I know.
Spoken about friendship, love, of course, and your beautiful son, Zach. Would love to also ask you about your husband, Richard. We spoke about your marriage last time we spoke, and you and Richard, you're actually coming up to your 25th wedding anniversary.
Yes,
I mean, again, see, here I go. I'm doing the whole couple of years ahead. But your 20th wedding anniversary fell in the heart of lockdown. You had planned to renew your vows.
Yeah.
Obviously, pandemic, like everyone, plans got put on hold.
Yeah.
You're starting to maybe throw forward something big for the 25th anniversary instead?
Potentially. We were talking yesterday. He's just come over to visit me because I've really missed him. And we're such a unit, just the two of us. We can just be sitting anywhere, not even talking. It doesn't matter. I just adore his company. And we were talking about what's our goals, what's our dreams. And we would love to have a little boat somewhere, just be on a river with a glass of wine, just together in the bush, just hanging out.
That sounds nice.
We don't have to go to Paris or do anything like that. We don't even have to really renew our vows. I mean, that would be lovely. But just want to keep hanging out with him as long as I can. He's the best guy, you know.
That's really nice. I think I asked you when we last spoke, oh, what's your secret? Which, I mean, it's an annoying question, be the first to admit that. But I know you get asked that all the time. You only need to look at the comments on your social media feed. And I was curious to get your feelings on that, because I always am conscious of a high-profile person or a couple, because I think that you have to carry unfairly a disproportionate amount of responsibility for love surviving, because every time a high-profile couple breaks up, you'll get people say, oh, no, love is over, the fairy tale doesn't exist. I mean, there's still people crying about Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, for heaven's sake. And that was like a couple of marriages ago for both of them, by the way. Yeah. So when people say, what's your secret? It's so beautiful and you answer it so generously, but there is also a little bit of an expectation. How does that sit with you?
It's okay. I mean, look, Richard doesn't like talking about things at all. He much prefers to be in the background. He's a production designer, so he said, I like designing the sets, and that's where I leave it. And he's an artist as well. We don't mind, because I'm very open with it. We are best friends. And I think, you know, doesn't mean that there isn't romance, but for me, this is the guy that will be there until the very end. He loves me with my wrinkles. He loves me when I'm fat. He loves me when I'm thick. He doesn't care. He just gets me, and we love the same food. We love the same of everything. It doesn't mean we always get on. We do argue. We compromise, but it's like you don't let the little shit get in the way of the big important stuff. And we've also gone through loss together. You know, he recently lost his father, and that was tragic and sad and awful, and we went through that together. We were both in the room when he passed. So again, it's that privilege of being there when someone leaves us. And holding each other and knowing that he is there for me in every circumstance as I am for him. And he's my number one priority, he and my son.
And that's the beautiful side of longevity, isn't it? Apart from the social media line about fairy tale, is that it's because you go through those moments together, and the more that you walk alongside somebody else in this life, the more that you are forged in fire together.
Absolutely. You know, and I think also the friendship thing, but I think we're not interested in the trappings and all that stuff. Like, we've recently moved to the country, and that's my happy place. I love being in a forest. I can sit under a tree and I could just sit there for hours, because for some reason I feel safe and protected. But he will sit under the tree with me. And we could sit there and not talk, but he'd just be quite happy to sit under the tree with me. You know, we don't chase anything else. We don't, I'm very content. We're both very content. And that's, I guess, again, getting to 60, getting to an age where I'm heading into the final act, and I couldn't think of anyone else that I'd rather walk through the fire with than him.
Content is a nice word,
I
isn't
love
it?
content. It's probably one of my favourite words.
It's something that would have, I imagine, felt quite elusive in younger years as
Definitely.
well, which makes it all the more precious.
Yeah, definitely.
What about Zach? Is there are we empty nesters yet, or is that
we are empty nesters? He's just graduated from drama school in Wellington. We were empty nesters. It's like back to the rafters. We were empty nesters. So he'd been living in Wellington for 3 years in a flat, and he's just moved home because he's just graduated from drama school.
Okay.
And like a lot of adult work actors, he hasn't got an income at the moment. He did just call me to say that he's got a callback for a film, and he's coming over here. I think he should move back to Australia. He was born in Tasmania. He's Australian. So he loves New Zealand, but I think he should come back here and give it a crack here, because I think he'll do really well. And I've got to say, he was more popular at the Logies than I was, because when we walked off stage, everyone was going, congratulations, Rebecca. Aunt Middleton, Kylie Gillies came up showing me all the photos that she'd taken of him while he was on stage, going, your son's amazing. She said, I'm just being the mother of, boys. And so I had all these people just coming up saying, your son's incredible. So I said, Zach, you've got a fan club already here.
Exactly.
Yeah, time to move, buddy.
And Rebecca's there going, okay. I was there too, by the way, guys. Did I mention Hall of Fame? Fourth woman only, Well, that then might sort of make some of this question redundant, because, again, every parent, I'm a mum of 2 boys, and you see them going through something, or like it could be even relatively small, like an exam that they might fail, and you think, I just wish I could do it, because the thought of them being disappointed or having to cope with something, you go, just give it to me a million times over, give it to me. We all know how difficult breaking into an industry like acting, of course, no one knows that better than you. How are you navigating that?
Do you know, the end of last year was really tricky for Zach as well, because he was there when his grandfather passed. He broke up with his girlfriend, and then literally 2 days later he graduated from drama school and had to say goodbye to all these, great friendships that he'd forged over the last 3 years. And he came home, and as I said, we live remotely, and he spent the last few weeks pretty much by himself. And he sent me the saddest text a couple of days ago, and he said, I feel a bit all at sea. I'm a bit lost, but I'm trying really hard. And it broke my heart because I couldn't do anything other than say, know that this time will pass and I will always be here, as will your dad. You have so many people that love you. You are such a good, kind, beautiful human, and what is for you will not pass you by. Whatever is meant for you will come. You've just got to be patient. And that was all I could say, really. And to also, I said, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. So try not to take anything too personally and just recognise that while it's hard at the minute, things will always get better.
It's really great advice. Did that help?
It did, actually. He came back and he said, Mum, I love you more than you'll know. You'll never know how much that has helped me.
Oh, that's so good.
I know.
That's beautiful.
I know. I'm really lucky.
Because that then really talks about that resilience aspect of life, isn't it? Which again, obviously comes up a lot in parenting. How can you instill that in somebody? And again, that's something that you've spoken about with your mum. You're clearly a very resilient person, and obviously your mum is as well. I think resilience is such an underrated quality.
Oh gosh, yes.
If you have resilience in your toolkit, literally by definition, you'll probably be able to withstand anything.
Absolutely, and I guess because I was raised in an environment where I watched my mother dealing with so many horrible issues. I mean, she was the victim of domestic violence for over 20 years. Prior to that, she'd been the victim of sexual abuse for 15 years. So speaking of resilience, and not only was it resilience, but to then come back with compassion and forgiveness for people that had done these things to her, she was still able to forgive them. I mean, it took me a long time. It took me up until into my 30s that I had to deal with some other issues, but to watch her constantly forgiving and constantly showing compassion, because she believes, she's obviously got a very strong faith, and she said, I'm just replicating what she believes God does. God is constantly forgiving us for whatever we do. And she said, so I just do what I'm told in that sense. And I think, watching that, growing up with that, and watching it. So I've never taken anything too seriously either. I've always, when things happen, if someone does something terrible to me, I'm very quick to forgive, because I know that I'm just as bad at doing stuff,
And when you say that it took you a bit longer than your mum, I mean, your 30s to come to that sort of forgiveness is, I would argue, still pretty damn early in the piece, because there's lots of people that go through these really awful experiences, the worst experiences in life that we're talking about, abuse and such a betrayal, especially when a child is subjected to that sort of thing. To find it in your heart for forgiveness while you're still on this planet and breathing, I would argue, is still a pretty remarkable achievement.
It is remarkable for her, I guess more for her certainly than definitely me. But as she said, you're not doing anything to them, because more often than not, like for example with her father, he was dead. And she said carrying that anger and that resentment and that guilt is doing nothing to him. He's gone, and doing everything to me. So the minute you let go of that and you're free of that, it also is releasing you from a lifetime of pain.
Yeah, no, it's so true, isn't it? And I was just thinking, Rebecca, in terms of your mum, Shirl, and then yourself, and then you and Richard raising Zach. Talk about breaking a cycle. That's within the course of 2 generations. And if you think of what your mum lived through, and then what you were exposed to and lived through, and then the environment in which Zach has grown up. I mean, that's really a beautiful example of us being able to
break the cycle.
Yeah,
and my family's all done it. I mean, as I said, I'm the youngest of 6, and all my brothers and sisters, they have all broken the cycle as well with their children and their children's children. So we've all managed to do it, and I keep putting it back to Mum, because I think Mum survived and taught us throughout that whole period how to do it. And we still talk. We still have these family Zooms where we catch up and we talk about everything. Doesn't mean, again, that we all get on, but we are fully resilient because we've all overcome these situations. And yeah, I look at some people sometimes, and I read the news sometimes, and I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, come on, just like, we've got to get some hope back into the planet. Like, at the moment, the world it's so full of doom and gloom. And I'm just so grateful that I do wake up, and I've always been glass half full, always. And I think I've got to keep trying to put that energy out, because there's a lot of energies out there trying to bring us all down.
There sure is.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I'm not sure what your theory would be if you have one, but I think it's still this idea that kindness and forgiveness and taking the higher road, which, as you say, and as your mum advised, is often for your own sake more than anyone else's, is still perceived as weakness.
Yes, and a cop-out.
And we're living in this time, possibly always, but definitely as you and I are sitting down in early 2025, where it's still very puffed up version of what strength is. It's the person that's yelling loudest at somebody else on social media, and I've got to have the same word, the last word. And so these ideas seem a bit quaint and soft, but actually I would argue are the characteristics of strength.
Absolutely. And you know, what we resist persists. You can keep resisting and resisting and resisting, and it'll keep persisting, That doesn't mean that you let bad things happen. You can still go and fight against it. You can still stand up and march. You can still write to the government. You can still do the right thing. But don't do it in anger. Do it for, we can all have social justice. We do. I mean, I have a conscience, and I want to do the right thing, but I don't do it in anger, because, again, it's not the energy or the frequency that I want to put out in the world. Because you just get pretty much back what you sow. I mean, I do believe what goes around comes around. If you put out anger, you're just going to get it back. If you put out hatred, you're going to get it back. Just keep, I know it sounds airy-fairy, but, just keep putting out the love.
No, I think it's completely true. And I think also when was somebody's mind changed by somebody yelling at them? I mean, a bit of anger, great to fuel you to take on injustices and change things.
Absolutely.
But it's actually not how you're going to convince anyone to reconsider their ideas.
Absolutely. And there's a difference between passion and anger. Passion's one thing. Anger's something completely different. You can have passion, have courage, absolutely. Just don't let it slip into the anger or the hatred. It's not going to help anyone.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the fact that your mum Cheryl's got quite a following of her own. I mean, wow, we've got Zach's got a whole fan base.
I know.
Now, obviously, Cheryl's got quite the following because of social media. So I'm sure people would love to know, how is she going right now?
She's okay. She's about to turn 90. So we've got a huge celebration coming up. She turns 90, and the day after, Zach turns 21. So it's I have actually had to say to Zach, sorry, buddy, the priority is Nana's 90. And he goes, I know, Mum, it's okay. I'll have a celebration later. But she's doing really well. Look, she's, she said, I've got everything wrong with me, but her brain is as sharp as a tack. She beats everyone at Wordle half the time. She's on Words with Friends. She's on Instagram. She's on Facebook. She's still kicking along.
I love it. I mean, I think there must be a Stella cover in her future.
I think she'd love that. I think that's the other thing as well. It's energy. If you direct positive energy at someone, it can't help but affect them. And I think when she has had falls and she has ended up in hospital, and I've put a little message on Instagram, and she'll get 25,000 likes within 24 hours, and there'll be 1,000 comments underneath saying, we're with you, Cheryl, we're for you, Cheryl. That has really genuinely made a huge difference to her. She feels love. She goes, I feel it. I feel like people genuinely care, and I think even she gets surprised.
That's nice. That's a community in the best possible sense of the word, the polar opposite of what we were just talking about.
Exactly.
Just as we're wrapping up, it doesn't sound like you are somebody who would want to do too many do-overs, if you could. But I always think as you've talked about the Hall of Fame and having that montage and looking back professionally and then turning 60. So whether it's do-overs or regrets, when you look back at the 60 years so far, the third act, we'll be also doing a cover when you turn 90 as well. So whatever styling we do with Cheryl, we'll just keep on hold as well for Rebecca in 30 years' time. But yeah, so it's a massive question. But when you look back at the breadth of your career and then your life, any lessons learned or reflections?
I think it's going back to treating myself better, looking after myself. And I think heading into the third act, I want to take care of my physicality a lot, as much as I can, and my mind. I want to honour the body I've been given. I want to honour the soul that I've been given. And I want to treat this person who I treated badly for so long. I want to treat her better, because I was full of self-loathing in my teens and 20s and panic attacks. And I think there's a lot of people out there that put so much pressure on themselves to live up to certain expectations, and at the end of the day, it's actually your own expectations of yourself. So for me, it's about being gentler with myself, being kinder to myself, looking after the little girl in the blue dress with the headless doll, looking after the 15-year-old with panic attacks, looking after the woman who was in a hole at 32 and wanted to kill herself. I'm looking after all of those iterations of myself. I guess I want to make sure that she's taken care of. And I think if I can do that and maybe spread that message to other, not just women, but people.
Everyone.
Look after yourself, be gentle with yourself, be kinder to yourself, love yourself, and that'll make you easier to love others and people to love you.
Well, that sounds like a perfect note on which to finish our conversation. So many really inspiring words from you there. And I know inspiring can be an overused word, but genuinely inspiring. And I think for anyone listening, wherever in their life, they're hearing all the best with Dancing with the Stars.
Thank you.
I mean, eviction night, you're going to be able to, hold on to that kindness.
Yeah, totally.
Do
you know what the weird thing is? I'm not very competitive, and Ian keeps saying, stop saying that. I have stopped saying I can't, because there was moments where I kept saying I can't. He said, no, you have to change that to I will. It's just a challenge. So I am doing that, but I'm not very competitive. And knowing me and the mother hen, I'll be rooting for everybody else to win. And probably if they give me the mirror ball, I'll probably hand it straight to someone else more deserving.
Ian will be like, where's Rebecca? She's over there. Oh, I just went over because, Sean's tie was crooked. I just wanted to straighten it up. You'll be like, Rebecca, we want to win. Come on.
That'll be me. Yeah, well, I'm just looking forward to spreading my wings in that. Again, the same on stage with the Sydney Theatre Company. If anyone wants to come along to that and watch me.
Can you tell me what you're going to be in?
It's a show called Circle Mirror Transformation, directed by Dean Bryant, and it's myself. And I can't say who the other person is because I don't know whether they've announced it yet.
All right.
But it'll be fun, and it's going to be July, August, and into September at the STC.
And first time on stage in
22 years or something.
I love it. 2025. Yeah. It's the year of a lot of new challenges for you.
The year for saying yes.
And the year for saying yes. We are here for it. And you, of course, can see Rebecca Gibney on Dancing with the Stars on Channel 7 later this year.
Yay.
Very exciting. Rebecca, thank you again, and all the best.
Sarah.
With rehearsals as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.